So this is going to be the fixture plate that I'm going to machine for the G&E shaper here. And this is going to allow me to have a lot larger workspace once it's mounted to the shaper here, and actually be able to utilize most of the stroke that's on the G&E, which is 32 inches, and be able to set longer parts on there needed, or be able to mount a vise on there further out from the column of the machine. But most importantly, this is going to begin being used with the Stoker engine that I'm helping Keith Rucker with. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is just simply get it cleaned up. I want to take my grinders and polish all the edges there, deburr them, get rid of the slag on there, get rid of the rust. And also the bottom of this piece was, it was evident that this was set down like in the yard on some gravel and some dirt. So the bottom of it's pretty dirty there too as well. So once I get the top edge done and these sides right here, I'm actually going to flip it over and clean the bottom of that plate really good. And we're just going to use that as our mounting surface on the table here. We'll just leave it right here like this, where I can get two edges right there. Probably go ahead and work. There's a lot of heavy slag on the bottom edge of that, so we may try to chip that off there. So I can get two sides right there, pick it up, rotate it, do the other two sides. We'll just use this heavy duty clamp right here to just kind of flip it over. Pick it up on the table so I ain't got to bend down on the floor there so I can clean it off. I was just going to mention this again. Whenever I pick these plates up with the magnet like this, just get it just up off the ground to where if it does come off, it's not going to really do anything, any damage or fall on you. But take it and kick it. See that heavy jar in there? If it ain't going to fall off like that, it ain't going to come off. All right, so I know that this is going to lift it up and it's not going to drop off the magnet there. Now I'm going to stay out from underneath it. I'm not going to put my feet, my toes, or my hands underneath it. So this will be the bottom of the plate, or the fixture plate, where it's gonna, we'll flip it back upside down. All right, so here's where it's gonna mount. All right, and you can see the table size, or table dimensions here is much smaller than the actual fixture plate. I believe it was around 15 or 16 inches, let's look. All right, so 15 and a half inches wide and then the length of it there was 18.5. This is one of the things right here that I'm disappointed in this G&E shaper. I love the machine, but I really don't understand why they manufactured the 32-inch stroke models with the same size table for the smaller shapers. You know, this is the same size table that would be on the 24-inch, maybe some of the other ones. And that's one of the reasons why I was always searching for the possibility of maybe adding a 36-inch box table, which we've got the Smith & Mills here, but you can see like this is a box table, so it doesn't rotate. But look how much longer the table is. So that's 25 inches right there, which actually covers the stroke there of the machine. This one's only 18.5 inches long. So whenever you actually have the box table shapers, the table itself for the box table is actually about equal to the length of whatever the machine is. Not so much the case for the G&E, and I just don't understand why they did that. So we're gonna have a fixture plate. I believe it was covered. Yeah, so I went 32 inches. So we'll be able to mount this plate, you know, so let me see where 32 is. So 32 is about right there, right where the tape is. So we'll have a fixture plate that hangs out like that. We'll have a lot more room to be able to put work pieces on there to do some machining. All right, but what I was going to point out was that the table is going to be 15.5, so it's only going to be in the center of this plate right there, and we'll probably put it off towards one side. This is the longer section of the plate there, so the bolt pattern will be closer to this side. So where all this mill scale had come off, we're not going to worry about that. That's just going to be hanging out in the air right there. So we got a nice smooth surface there now. We'll go ahead and flip it back over, and I'm going to finish out the top side, and we'll start laying her out. We got the plate nice and clean. You kind of see how shiny it is there. So we got a nice smooth surface on it. So what I've been working on is my sketches for the hole pattern layout here. And this is the layout on the plate right here. This is representing the table on the shaper. So we've got our center to center dimensions, and we're using the outer two slots. So if we come over here and just kind of lay this like right there, that's kind of like looking down at the table. So you can see we're going to have T-nuts on the four corners right there, spread out as far as I can while still completely in the table there. All right. So that'll be one hole pattern, and so that's going to be just drilled and counterbored for the socket head bolts. And then we're going to have 4 more holes that will be drilled and tapped out here further, which will be the footprint of the Stoker engine. I'm still contemplating on how to do this hole pattern. I could just set the whole engine on top of this thing, square it up the best I can, and then transfer punch it, or I could go and try to get it flipped over and then measure the hole pattern, because I have no idea if it's just a cast hole pattern or if it was actually like a drilled hole through the casting there. I can't tell. So we may just see about getting the engine over here where I can use my A-frame and maybe pick it up. I'm thinking about maybe just go ahead and let's get this thing flipped over upside down so that I can at least clean and wire brush the bottom of the feet there. So this is what I'm talking about. I don't know if it's a symmetrical hole pattern or if it's just cast in there. I really don't know. So the only way to find out is to really get it upside down and measure it and see if it's consistent. Just going to show you how I'm going to move it around here. I got to get it picked up off the this cart here because I can't get through the doorway like that, and I can't slide it by myself. So we're going to just pick it up and put it on the pallet jack. Remember these guys that I built, used for pulling as an anchor point? Now we got a nice lifting point so we can pick this thing up and flip it over. All right, those D-ring mounts worked out really good for this job right here. So these are going to be handy for flipping this thing over. So all I'm doing right now, I'm focusing on, I want to do some measuring of the feet here and measure what the hole pattern is so I can get that written down on my sketch pad. And then once I get all that done and I know where my holes are going to be, this is going to end up going outside and we'll wire brush it real good. I'd love to soak it in Evaporust, but I don't really have a good way to get it down in my tank. I would need this, you know, for the tank to drop it in there. But we'll just wire brush it. And the reason why it got real rusty again, because Keith had actually Evaporust this and it looked good. But getting it from Georgia to here, it rained really hard during that time, so it got wet in the back of the truck. And that's all it is just, you know, the rusty orange from flash rusting there. All right, we got the 4 pads clean. I've been measuring it to see where our hole pattern is. So side to side this way, this one is 1/8 of an inch longer. So using the rule there, we're actually measuring side to side 23 5/8. And if we move this down here to measure these holes here, we're at 23 1/2. So that's why I wanted to you know, get this upside down and measure it to see where it's at. So measuring from this way here, if we turn around this way, this one here is 1/16 wider than this one right here, okay? And it looks to me like, if I move this scale out of the way, you look down there, it looks to me like this has been drilled at some point, both of those holes. Like maybe it didn't quite line up somewhere, wherever they mounted it, and they went through there with the drill and just drilled it out, because it looks like there's, you know, 2 holes that was drilled through there, or they opened it up. That's what it looks like to me, but I don't know. So I think what I'm going to do is just go ahead and measure it closely, and I'll just lay it out on the plate how I've actually measured it right here. I'm working on my reference layout lines on the plate, and I've got them all where they need to be. So just using my drawing there and our center distance, we just using a Sharpie, and this is just for reference. I'm going to come in there and blue it. I got red dicam, so we'll put some red dicam on them and actually scribe them. So, you know, start with your center line. So we've got a center line there. By the way, the very center, I'm going to drill and tap that for a eye bolt so that we can pick this thing up with the A-frame there, just nice and flat without having to use the magnet. So we'll have a tapped hole there. All right, so we've got our layout line. So this is going to be the counterbore holes for the bolt it down. And then I messed up here. These are not it, but it's actually these guys right here, counterbore holes. All right, and then we've got, this is the locations for the tapped holes. That's going to be holding the engine case down. We got them right here and right here. And I'm going to end up using 3/4 studs for this with flange nuts to hold it down to the plate there. All right, so I'm just measuring it, making sure that we got it correct where it needs to be. We'll come in here and we'll blue all this and actually go in there and lay it out with an actual scribe line now. All right, so we've got our red dicam on there. It's nice and dry now, so we're gonna go ahead and start scribing it in. I'll show you some highlights of this because I know there's a few guys that wanted to see this. and I'll try not to bore you too bad with this, but we want to start in the center. So you want to split the difference each way and scribe a line, and then I work off the center line there using another scale, and I'll show you what I mean. So I've got the first one set, our 28-inch width right there, so we've got it set at 14 inches there on the square. And usually what I like to do to kind of, this isn't exactly, this is flame cut, so you've got a little variance there. And usually what I do is just get it set. I just make a little light scribe line, and then I come over to the other side like this, and I look at it and I see how close it is. So I've got it matched up just about perfect. So we're gonna go ahead and just make a couple of scribe lines. We'll start on each end just like this right here. I'll make a scratch there, and then we're gonna come down here to this end and do the same thing. All right, so now we've got a line here and a line down on this other end, and I'm going to take the we'll take the 36-inch scale, and we're going to line them up like that on both of those little short scribes, and then we'll go ahead and scribe all the way down the middle there. All right, we got a nice visual line all the way down there, so we'll repeat that for this direction. These holes here are going to be the front edge of the fixture plate, meaning this is going to be the side that's up close against the column of the shaper. All right, so these I've got measured 4 1/8 inches back, and that's going to give me 3 inches of overhang plus the distance that I need to go in to cover the T-slot in the table itself. So we'll just go ahead and make us some scribes here. So the reference, with this reference right here, I know where the scribe lines are going to be. That helps me out instead of guessing where to actually scribe it at. So we'll go ahead and put one on each side right here. And then I'm going to use this as our center to center distance for the next set of holes. So it's going to be, they are going to be spaced, let me see where I wrote it, 16 1/4 inches between the front set of holes and the back set of holes. So we'll use this line here to accurately go that distance out to the next set of holes there. Go ahead and get this line scribed in. I usually just try to line it up right on the edge of the mark that I already put in there to where it just doesn't hide it. So you can kind of move your scale a little bit, and whenever you see the scale start trying to cover up the line, you should be right about where you need to be, within a few thousandths anyway. All right, so it would have helped to probably have some blue, or the red, I mean the red dicum all the way across, but I did not do that, so we'll just use our trusty scribed marks here, and we are using a carbide scribe that helps get through that mill scale and actually scratch a line in there that you can feel. This is the line that we just scribed. We'll go ahead and move out to our second set of bowl holes and go ahead and get that line in there. So this is how I usually do it. So I'm going to just square this up about where I know where it needs to be. And so we're going to be 16 1/4 inches from center to center right there. So what I do is down here on this end that I'm lining up, I get the rule just lined up on both sides of the scale here on the 16 1/4 mark, okay? So that'll get you square too. So 16 1/4, I'm just visualizing it and making sure that I'm there. So 16 1/4, 16 1/4, hold it down, and then we're going to go ahead and mark this end right here. I'm knocking some of that mill scale off, so I'm making sure that I actually have a mark there to go on. That's the problem with the mill scale. Sometimes when you're scribing, the mill scale pops off, so sometimes it's better just to make a light mark on top of the die that you got on there instead of chipping it off. But I can see it there. So now we're going to move down and do it on the other side there. 16 1/4. See if we can do it a little bit lighter this time. There we go. Just scratch the die. So there's our two marks right there. So now we're going to go ahead and work off this center line while using the rule. So that is 10 1/2 center to center. So half of that is going to be 5 1/4. So we'll go ahead and just line up our rule right here on the 5 1/4, both sides of the ruler, and that helps you get it square, you know, this way as well. So we'll line it back up there. 5 1/4, 5 1/4 top and bottom, and so this is going to be the second mark. All right, there's our X. So now we know where to punch it. Now we're going to, you don't have to flip the ruler around, but that's usually the kind of habit that I get into sometimes. So lining it up on 5 1/4. All right. There we go. Okay. So these two holes are located. Now we've got to come back to the front side and do the exact same thing that we just did right there. So I moved on and I'm scribing the lines that's going to be for the 4 feet of the Stoker engine casing. And I decided to shift the hole pattern forward just a little bit. These are the lines that indicate where they were, and that was actually centered. And when I was first laying it out, you know, I was centering it this way on the plate. But I actually want to move the engine case forward just a little bit to kind of get it a little bit closer to the column of the machine. So I'm actually just using the same scribed line that I made for the holes that's going to be mounting it down to the shaper table. We're going to use that, and I've double checked my measurements to make sure that at this point right up here I need a good 8 inches of clearance, you know, from where the feet's going to be mounted right there up to the column, and there's going to be plenty of clearance there. I just wanted to kind of get it forward a little bit more, so I thought I'd bring you up to date on that. So our center to center for the feet hole pattern is 17 3/4. So we're doing the same thing. I've got my scale lined up there on 17 3/4. And we're going to come back here and make our mark. All right, and I'm going to repeat that on the other side and finish laying these 4 out. Working off the center distance there, 11 and 13/16 is going to be our distance to each side there. So it's real easy to do with the scale. I got the scale in the center of the scribe line on both ends right there. And then I'm looking here from the center point, and I've got this 11 and 13/16 line lined up with the center of the plate there. All right, and we'll do the same thing on this side. Just slide her down, get her centered up on the line in the center of the scale there. 11 and 13/16, centered, centered. All right, so we got those two. All right, we got 2 more to scribe, and scribing will be finished. wanted to show you guys the tool that I'm going to use to do the initial center punching on the scribe line. So this is the OnMark optical center punch, and I believe this was a gift from Mr. Tom Taylor several years ago. One of the gifts that was sent in to me for viewer mail there. But this is a really neat tool, and it's the perfect tool for what we're doing hand scribed lines. So let's go ahead and pull it out there. This is the instruction packet right there. Okay, so what you have is, let's just pull these guys out. So you have two pieces, and then you have the base. This is machined aluminum. It's got some cork on the bottom. Very simple design. So what you have here is an optical center, and when you look down through that, you can't see that on video, but there's actually a round circle in the center, and then there's a very small dot that's right in the center of that. All right, you stick that down through there, and you put this onto your surface like that, and you get down there real close with your eye, and you move this around until you locate the very center of your scribe lines using the dot there. Okay, and once you get there, you just be very gentle with this, and very easy. Pull the optical center out, and it suggests that you actually lay it right there in the top of the container. All right, and then you take your hardened steel punch and very lightly just set it in the hole. All right, and then you tap it with your hammer, just a small medium-sized hammer, give it a tap, and there's your center punch right there. Okay, so after you do that, you can come back and then come in there with a regular center punch and mark it a little bit harder for a more profound center point mark. So let's go over there and put this guy to use. All right, we'll start right here on this side. So sometimes it can be a little bit hard to see just because it's kind of dark in there. So a little thing that helps with this actually is if you take a little bit of light and shine it on there, it transfers down through that optical center. So I've got this little light right here, a little mag base, and I'm going to shine it right there on that, on the optical center, and then it brightened it up. The light transfers down to the bottom, and you can definitely see it. So I'm going to get down in there. Once you move it around, you can see the black dot come into view. It's very, very small, and I can see so clear the scribe lines and where they intersect. Okay, it's like looking through a magnifying glass. So I have that dot as center as I can by sight. So we'll just go ahead and pull that guy out. Drop this guy down in there, trying to be very gentle that I don't slide or move the base there. And we're just going to very gently hit it one time, just like that. And there we go. We have a nice punch mark. And like I said, we come back in there with a little bit larger hand punch and punch this again. That looks perfect right there. Nice. I was going to try to give you guys a close-up shot using the optical center punch, but it just won't quite focus. So you can see our scribe lines right there. All right, you move this guy over just like that, and then we take our optical center, this guy right here, and you can't even see the dot on the end right there. Maybe just barely can you see the dot. All right, and then you just stick this down in there very gently, and you move it around until you get that black dot right in the center of the crosshairs there of your your two scribe lines. And once you get that little black dot right in the middle of the X, pull your optical center out, and then take your hardened steel punch and just lightly set it down in there, and then gently tap it with the hammer, pull it out, and you'll have a nice little punch mark right in the center of those crosshairs. This is actually a pretty interesting and fun way to, make your punch marks on this. Not something that you really need to do every day or use every day, but when you want to get some precision punch marks on there, this is a great way to do it. And it's just kind of fun. Every time I move, I feel like I move the base, so I just keep double checking it, but it's there. What I do is I'm just getting the light kind of positioned where I need to light it up at. So I find it first pretty quickly like that, and then I just move the light until I get the best light that I can on it, which that looks pretty good right there. And then I go ahead with my movements. Perfect. A couple more to do and we'll be through punching with the optical punch anyway. So this is the point where what I like to do is go ahead and take a bright paint marker here. This is just a yellow paint marker, and I like to circle where the holes are going to be, because you see we've got different spots on this, and it's a quick visual reference of where you got to go exactly once you get to the machine. So I'm just going to do a circle around the 8 punch marks, actually 9, because we got one in the middle I forgot to just now mention. We got one in the center. This is going to be for an eye bolt for lifting. All right, let's just come around here, reaching over, and then we've got this guy and this guy right there. Yep. Much easier to see where you've got to line your machine up at, your machine spindle, once you highlight all your hole locations there. All right, last step of the punching. I'm going to take a nice center punch here. We're going to go ahead and punch the holes one more time. This is another one of the viewer tools that was given to me several years ago. My favorite center punch. This was German made by Lux Tools. It's always been an excellent punch. And of course the Essential Craftsman hammer that Scott had given to me. Always love using it now anytime I get a chance. The first initial punch is just a very light indentation to get you centered on there. And you just drop your center punch right into that little tiny divot, and you feel it, and you're there. All right. All of our punching is now done. What I want to do is I'm going to double check this off camera and do some measuring with my scales here and make sure that I'm correct on everything, make sure my clearance is right. And then from here, we're going to get this thing on a cart, roll it down to the mill, and start putting our holes in there.